Let's do it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the March meeting of ICODR. Delighted to see all of you. There's so many things going on, and I'm very, very excited that Morgan is with us today to talk about all the amazing things that she's doing with Levelheaded. So, in terms of announcements, I just want to say we have an arbitration platform that we are demoing next month from the UK called PinQDR, which I think should be really interesting. Mo, thank you so much for just registering as a new ICODR member. So a round of applause for Morgan for doing that. Hopefully some of you are going to be at the ABA dispute resolution section meeting. Gabby, I'm going to mute you if you don't mind. I'm hitting the magic button. It's one of the things I love about Zoom. I wish I had a mute button in real life. Just mute people all day. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're going to come out to San Diego, I know Gary's going to be there, and we're going to be recording a live session together there. And then we also have in Prague, ODR 2024. So if you haven't seen it, check out the website at odr2024.org. I think Zbinek's putting together an amazing program, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. So there's a lot that's cooking. So, but we are delighted today to have Morgan to tell us a little bit about all the amazing work that she's doing. So Morgan, without further ado, let me hand the baton to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Colin. Wonderful to be here. And yep, was just reading up about ICODR and really feel honored to be here. What an impressive group of people and organization to be a part of and speaking to. I just absolutely love seeing how mediation is being transformed across the world and think it's really exciting. I'll also say, and you'll hear this, but because of my journey and professionalism in mediation, it's just really refreshing to be in a room full of people who understand what I do and care about it so immensely. And I wouldn't be here without all the hard work that's gone before me. So really excited to be here today, and just want to say without a doubt, I'm here to really present about what I'm doing and where I'm going. And so it's not so often that I get the opportunity to ask for feedback or input or open up the table for conversation for people who really know the nuances of what I'm doing, but also might have other considerations from obviously a geographical perspective, but certainly where you're working in mediation, wherever you are and how it's working. So please at any time stop, raise your hand. I'd love to have this be as much of a conversation as possible. So my name is Morgan Tregenza. I do go by Mo. My clients love it when I tell them that. You can call me Mo. I am the president of the Mediation Association of Colorado. I also have my own private mediation practice in Colorado, but most excitingly, I founded my a mediation startup company, and we are working on building a process to really help proliferate and democratize the mediation process in the United States. I am so lucky to have Colin as one of my advisors and some other wonderful advisors, but we're really in the beginning stages and have some really wonderful opportunities to sort of test and learn. But again, I'm excited to be here and maybe learn about some of the things that you all are using as well. So with that said, I'm just going to share a little bit about how I came into mediation and why I love this so much. I guess I'm one of the few that gets to maybe say mediation was in my family. My grandfather was a judge for a long time, and he retired and became a mediator. When he was a mediator is when I was a young girl and really knew him. And without a doubt, he said mediation is where it's at. When I was a judge, I was just a grumpy old man administering decisions. And no matter how much I thought and cared about, giving a reasoning for why I was adjudicating in the way that I was, when you render that decision, it's not heard or felt in a way that's as meaningful in mediation. So I really saw him in the prime and in the love of his profession, where he thought mediation is where it's at. I think the other part of the process that he loved and really spoke to was that there's really a transformation when mediation is done right for people and their ability to see through problems. But I also think he spoke to the way that it changed people's relationships. He was really fortunate to mediate for political figures. So at the end of his mediation tenure, he was traveling the world and mediating for big political names. His claim to fame is once meeting with Fidel Castro. So He really instilled with me this love of peacemaking, I'll say, and conflict resolution in a way that was impactful. He had 5 kids, and none of them went to law school. So I carried the baton, and I think in his generation, right, becoming a mediator was probably going to law school and practicing law and becoming a judge. I'm really glad to say that I did not have to do all of that, and I'm so glad that the mediation profession is where it is, and there are such incredible non-lawyer mediators. And that we have this playing field where I really see a proliferation and a growing narrative and awareness of mediation. And that's really why I'm here. I wouldn't be here without all the hard work of everybody who's gone before me, but I truly think that we are at a place right now where we're seeing sort of what I call a tidal wave or a shift in how people are thinking of solving disputes. And particularly, I think young people embracing thinking of how we solve disputes and how we have discussions and really appreciating that process. And when I explore in my sort of entrepreneurial journey, what else is out there, there's a good reason, right? Things are shifting and technology is really augmenting the way people are solving problems and having discussions. And I think if we can embrace some of that, we can really use the thinking of mediation to put ourselves ahead of, the historical ways of solving problems. So with that said, I did go to law school. I pretty quickly realized that I have few, if any, adversarial bones in my body. So I naturally gravitated towards mediation and was really lucky that I got to mediate in a few positions where I was sponsoring the idea of mediation for judges who were experiencing grievances, and the impact of that for judges and the systems and the courts was incredible and really made me think this is what I want to do. If I can do it in this setting, it can translate. So I started mediating for the courts in Colorado, and several years went by. I was actually thinking of opening up my own mediation office and getting all the space to conduct everything, and COVID hit. I'm the mother of 3, so I was pretty quickly brought to just a home life and teaching things like conflict resolution. Um, and our small claims court and the magistrate who ran it, after I think about 9 months, decided to put all of his mediations through Zoom. And so all of a sudden, a mediation program that was doing 2, maybe 3 mediations a week that were in person and limited because of space was doing 2 to 3 mediations a day. So those mediations could suddenly occur simultaneously. I jumped on the bandwagon of mediating for that program, and I loved it. I loved seeing the parties that came in via small claims. I loved the opportunity that it afforded these people to have these discussions. It really changed my life, to be honest. And I thought, why don't these people in this type of case or thinking have access to this process? Why don't they know about it? And then I saw where there was impediments and where things were slowing down, and where I thought we could speed things up. So that's really where the idea for my company that I founded a couple years ago, excuse me, called Levelheaded, comes from. I really care about access to justice and democratizing the process of mediation. And what does that look like? What does that look like when we're talking about different demographics? What does that look like when we're talking about what we see traditional mediation and arbitration costs are? How can we use technology to make some of the process more efficient, so that it is the most accessible? And I'll just say, and Mike knows this, I'm so glad he's here, that I think in Colorado, we're just seeing a huge growth of mediation use. I am on the legislative committee of the Mediation Association of Colorado. Last year, our state passed a bill that mandates mediation pre-eviction filing. There are a few qualifications for that, but it's incredible because we're seeing these cases where it's such a meaningful tool be ordered to mediate before they can even file. And so far, I've not resolved one of those cases. And I know we're not here to talk about resolution rates, but it's an incredible opportunity that's so meaningful. And I think just because of that, we're seeing it being used more prolifically, especially in the landlord tenant space. And then in other spaces as well. We have folks who are testifying or advocating for the use of mediation in a lot of other spaces, HOA, access to justice bills. So it's really wonderful. And in my position as the president, and I also think level-headed, I've had people come to me from different states and say, how are you guys doing this? How is it working? And just learning so much from those programs and those mediators as well. So I'm excited because I really feel like we're on the cusp of changing really how people think of mediation. And I think that there's a huge potential to bring awareness around this process and to tell people how this works and to sort of separate it from the traditional legal process and some of the antiquated use cases of the courts, and really make it the most accessible. So that is where Levelheaded came from. I'm so excited to be here. I would love to share my screen and show you all what we've built so far, and absolutely want to get your input. Really the three, I want to say, key points of what I'm trying to achieve here with Levelheaded is having access to resolution anytime, anywhere. So we're exploring how we can make that access the easiest. Is it having access to voice and speaking into something? What about text? Just all the ways that we can augment the process and how people get into mediation. And I think just overcoming hurdles, right? What do people experience when they're trying to get into a mediation, and how can we make it easier? And also, how do we consider, people in different circumstances, different mindsets of thinking? Gosh, I don't know that I want to do this. One of my theories in this, I went to a legal startup showcase, and I heard a statistic that 3 to 4 the average US citizen, excuse me, thinks of suing 3 to 4 times a year. Now, we know that the average US citizen does not take action, but that says that people are thinking of disputes that often. That's a huge number. So what are they doing with those? Are they letting them go for good reason? Maybe so, but maybe they're not engaging because they really feel alienated from a system where they can't reach dispute resolution or have access to it. There may be so many other considerations. And I also think of this as, for me, and this is my utopian kind of crazy ideal world, is that mediation becomes so prolific and people realize that they really do have the power to solve their own problems, that the mediation profession and lawyers go away, right? That will never happen. I know that the legal world will exist just like the medical world will exist, regardless of how much we can automate surgeries and medicine. But I really love what mediation can bring to people in, accountability, empathy, but also just seeing a path forward. And I think that when we get that right, the effects are so profound and they go beyond the time of mediation. They go into people's relationships beyond, and seeing, hey, I actually have the capacity to think about solving this and engaging in dispute resolution on my own. I also tell people all the time, I have an incredible relationship with my mother. We're very close, but don't get me wrong. If I could ask a mediator to step in every so often, I certainly would. So just the thought of don't be afraid to ask for help, especially when it comes to engaging with a neutral and someone who can really help facilitate a meaningful conversation in lieu of our traditional path of engaging with lawyers and being adversarial. And all of a sudden, we're navigating a divorce, but we're talking about, something that has no relation or bearing to the nuts and bolts of that actual divorce. So I'm a huge believer, if that's not apparent. The other tenet of what we're trying to build is making technology and humans in harmony. So bringing tech efficiencies to augment the human experience. So like I said, I have 3 kids, 2 of them are teenagers. Where can we bring in ease of use into the mediation process, and remove the barriers? Remove the barriers as it relates to access, but remove the barriers as it relates to understanding. I also think a huge part of this, how we speak about mediation, how people are thought to understand it. I think in Colorado, and that's just the state that I'm most versed in, it's very tied into the legal world and the judicial, which is important because you can speak to that. But oftentimes, I think it gets conflated, and in that nature, it can become really scary, right? People are scared to engage with the judicial system. And for that reason, how do we talk about dispute resolution, mediation specifically, in a way that's really palpable, I want to say, or tangible to anyone, and have them understand and want them to engage? And that's why we call it level-headed. I think part of my journey is to really build a brand that speaks to that, and really invites and encourages people who have no idea what mediation is to engage with the process. And I think last but not least, just in the world where we're going, but talking about automated data-driven outcomes where people might not otherwise think that they can engage, or we're talking about that statistic earlier of people thinking of 3 to 4 times a year of suing. What does that mean? Where can we pull information that would help people get through disputes where they might not actually need to engage with a full-blown mediator? I also really like to consider, like, what are the powerful points in mediation that people really change? Like, where do we find that most meaningful impact? I think a lot of it is just having the opportunity to sit down and really be heard, and then, engage with someone who's literally curious. For me, that's some of the magical moments in mediation. Last but not least, I'm just going to say, I'm here because I'm lucky I get to say my grandfather introduced me to this. But one of the things I care about so adamantly, and I say this all the time, is I have a lot of lawyer friends and people in the legal field who say, Morgan, how did you get into mediation? I don't really know any mediators who are asking me how they get out. I think we all know it's a wonderful profession, and we're so lucky to be here. The community that's embraced me is just incredible. Colin, Mike Madej, I recognize a few other names here. It's an amazing space. And how do we proliferate what we've done into the future? How do we make this job of mediation and peacemaking more prolific? How can we bolster what we do, legitimize what we do, and have it make it be the first pass that you go to when you're really in a dispute? I think that's as much as part of my mission as reaching to the clients and the people who don't know about mediation. So that's really where I'm coming at from all of this. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just actually going to stop and say, does anybody have any questions or comments for me before I keep rambling on? No. Okay.
Your passion is infectious, Mo. It really is. So you're a
Thank
great
you.
ambassador for this, for our field. So thank you for starting there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you know what? I see a chat in here. I haven't shared anything yet, but I'm going to. And I'm also just going to say, before I do that, I'm going to drop my LinkedIn in here, and please find me on LinkedIn. And I also like to tell people all the time, my Zoom room is pretty open. I do mediate. I probably do 2 or 3 a week, but when I'm not, I love talking about mediation, especially with other mediation practitioners, and especially with other mediation practitioners in other states. So please send me a note, say hi on LinkedIn. I would love to be connected. Again, I was reading about ICODR and just what a great community to be a part of. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is where I'm really going to ask for a little bit more feedback and interaction, because you all are mediation experts, and I would love to see what you think about what we're thinking and how this may help your mediation business if you would sign on. But also considerations of where you're going, oh, I don't like that. So please be honest. I am very used to taking criticism. As Colin knows, I'm in the startup world. So more often than not, I'm trying to convince people of what I'm doing and how amazing it is, and they have no idea. In fact, I've had more people tell me, oh yeah, you're the gal with the meditation. So again, it's great to be in a room where everybody's familiar with what I do. Let me just grab my right screen here, and then I'm going to walk you through our prototype, if you will. And if we have time, we'll move into a few other pieces of collateral that I'll share with the room to get feedback on. Okay, so first and foremost, this is a prototype. So this is sort of how we're thinking of engaging and building access to mediation. This is really wet paint. This is the first sort of iterations of what we're thinking of doing. We do have a beta version, and I encourage actually anybody who wants to log into the beta version or become a beta tester to check it out, or again, reach out to me if you will, and I'll share where that is in a second. So this is the landing page. One of the things that we're really trying to understand and play with, and I should just say, part of the reason I'm here is because my husband saw me go through law school, take on some of my legal journey, and then fall in love with mediation. And he has been in startup land, but he is a market researcher and loves to think about how people think and how we can really have more impactful communication with people. So part of what I'm trying to understand, and again, this is what pain, I'm not sure that I like all of it, but how can we talk to people about mediation with removing some of the legal language that we're also used to? I'm not sure that problem solver or problem haver are the right words, but this is sort of what we're playing with. So here's our landing page, and I'm going to walk you through the platform. So at Levelheaded, we're smart, empathetic, expert problem solvers. We believe in making mediation accessible to everyone. Our mission is to make the world a less litigious place, allowing you to focus on the good stuff in life. I I always like to think of those stories where people are just so grateful that they got to move on with life, and I've gotten to see both sides of that. So the problem haver being the person with the problem, and this is really to think of how do we make the engagement with mediation super accessible, right? So you're the person coming to the table and you have a problem. We want to make this really easy and remove the legalese. So get started, schedule a session, upload documents, do your Zoom mediation, and then you're going to get your settlement documents and signatures. So that problem haver, again, being a client going, I'm looking for mediation. How do I get in there? We want to make it super easy. So really, we're removing like telling us what's your case number, is this probate, right? A lot of people don't know what those terms are. So just simple, tell us your name, your phone number, and email address, what's your preferred communication. Describe in your terms a little bit about yourself. I actually would love to have this portion be maybe a microphone and say you can speak into it. If you'd like to have a consultation, go for it and set one up. Then you hit continue here. And essentially that's it. We're going to take the next steps to engage you because we realize doing a lot of intake that people, they become overwhelmed when you start to ask them too many questions. I want to say the other thing that I've noticed is that you're dealing with people and their problems, right? A lot of people don't want to sit there and think about it or go through stuff. So the less you can ask them and just get them to initially engage, the more effective maybe your next steps can be. So really that's what we ask when they first come in, and then keep them up to date. The other thing that we've learned is that people like the ways that they've traditionally engaged with communication. So having them sign into something new or foreign, especially again, as it relates to something that they don't want to deal with, can be really meaningful. So we thought of having this place that was your place online where you could access information about your mediation. Maybe you had a video that demystified or, introduced you to your mediator and told you a little bit about the process. It simplifies the process. It's going to give you all the steps that you need to do. And give you a super high level of your case and its information. But for all intents and purposes, you're going to receive your information around your case in whichever format you want. The next part is my favorite part, and this is the part for all of us. So this is the problem solver. We're the problem solvers. Yay. So these are mediators who want to come in and receive cases. So as you know, many of you on your journey might be a part of mediation organizations or other mediation firms where you may be given or be in receipt of mediation orders. One of my theories, and thanks to Colin and our other advisors, we're really looking at where and what industries we can have case volume to give to mediators and say, hey, some folks like Airbnb, maybe Legal Shield, we know that you have issues. How could we use dispute resolution and access to this platform to help solve problems? And I think this goes to a lot of different spaces. One is for a business, right? You probably might have better customer retention if people could engage with a process like this, but also maybe the potential to really learn about things, right? Like what if all these problems are occurring for something that's repetitive and it's easy to solve on the business side? Could we abstract and really distill the information around that mediation and say, oh, if you fix this, you might relieve 5% of your problems. Wouldn't that be great? So here, the problem solver, the mediator, comes in. And again, this is going to give you a few different options and levels for how you're going to use the platform. In Colorado, well, like most states, there's actually no formal regulation of mediation, but folks who want to be bound can be members of the Mediation Association of Colorado, in which case you say, hey, I've taken a 40-hour training, I do continuing mediation certification, and in areas where there might be required expertise, I stay up to date on that. That's specifically here in relation to domestic relations cases. So what if the platform offered certification around those? So again, we're really trying to think of this a little bit differently. We ask people what their skill sets are, and not in the usual way. We want to know a little bit about that person, where they're located, and then maybe their subject matter expertise as it relates to legal matters, how many cases they're currently resolving in a month. And then we're going to give you an offering of different levels of the platform. So the base might just be you just using the platform to manage your cases. And these, again, I almost hate sharing these numbers because these are wet paint. This is just a prototype. But the middle is really thinking that you would log in, become a member of Levelheaded, and then we would give you your cases. We would say, hey, we have 100 cases from Airbnb. We're going to then give those people who are qualified the opportunity to mediate those cases, or the other organizations that we've paired with, or you might already be a part of an organization. And Levelheaded Premium might be a more robust version of that includes some of the automations that we'll talk about a little bit more as we go through here. So here is Tiramisu, our wonderful mediator Tiramisu. Again, the thought of this is that if we can make some of the administrative processes of mediation more efficient, maybe mediators could do more cases, right? If we can give you a really distilled version of your case, you might be able to do, more than 5 mediations a week. And I know doing 5 is unheard of. I think in small claims, I get through some of my mediations really quickly. So it would be great if I could do a morning and an afternoon session, and maybe even another one if a lot of that intake material was a lot more distilled and prepared for me. So here's Tiramisu's dashboard. This is her calendar view. Here she's got her problem-solving awesomeness. And then this is her case volume. So this is available cases she might be able to snag and say, hey, I want to do that one. These are the cases she's actively in. Those are hers. She's managing them. These might be cases she's interested in, and these are completed cases. So cases she's done and we need to pay her for. And then over here, this is all the pertinent information that we see going through the mediation process. So subject matter, this is a case number, have they paid, have they both or everyone signed the agreement to mediate, is it scheduled? So this goes through all of those things that we do ahead of mediation to be prepared. And now I'm going to go into an actual case, and this is where I'm going to stop and ask people to give a little bit of feedback and maybe open up the floor for a discussion here. So these are the cases. This is where you're seeing your most recent communications from parties, but also where your most pressing mediations would show up. Again, this is an actual case with your conversations with your parties. Up here, you have a button that says, hey, has your agreement to mediate been sent? So that's going to automate that process for you, so you don't have to manage it. It's going to collect signatures and make sure that the parties are doing it. I've actually built this into our current beta version, and parties can sign either via text link or an email link, and they love that, right? I have parties who don't always have access to their email, so it's a great way to get them through that step and create better access to mediation. Scheduling, this would also automate the scheduling. So the thought is it's going to link up to your calendar and say, hey, this mediation fits in here, you can snag it. Again, it's going to automate payment. The parties are going to pay on their own. You're not going to have to monitor that or have another system to do payment. Case context and materials. This is going to take everything in around the case. So when you receive case information, it's going to make sure that it's distilled it. and prepared it in a way that's most meaningful for you. And this is where things start to get a little bit different and exciting, in my opinion. So you've reviewed your case intake ahead of the mediation. You've gotten everything, the payment, the agreement to mediate, context and information has been uploaded. And now it's the day of mediation. You're going to enter into your mediation. What the platform would do is take a summary of the communication and information as it's been received by the parties and summarize it here in a really meaningful way, and so that you have access to it while you're in your mediation. So it's going to give you sort of a distilled version of things and what's been going on, so that while you're listening to the parties, you also have access and, maybe even arguably a neutral presentation of what the parties are considering. So I want to stop here and just open up the floor a little bit and ask, what do you all think of this? How do you see this as maybe helping or augmenting your mediation process, especially as it relates to maybe a summary presentation of what's been going on, but also maybe some of the other tools that I've previously spoken to as it relates to collecting signatures on the agreement to mediate or maybe facilitating payment? Anybody have any thoughts or considerations? And you can just speak up,
Katerina, I saw your hands up. You're on mute though.
Yeah, okay. I have two questions.
please.
One is going back a little bit to the first part that you presented. What happens for the disputant? And you said you contact the other party. Does the other party give permission to be contacted, or is it like in community mediation where the first party just gives the contact information of the other party and the agency is the first they hear about this even happening? That's my first question. I have a second question, but answer this one first, maybe.
Okay, I'll jump in. It's a great question, and something that's just not built out in this Figma, but I think it's an important one, right? How do we meaningfully contact the adverse party, especially if they're not ordered to mediate? So yes, I think that first party would fill in information if they have it in relation to the other party, and then it would be Levelheaded's job to say, hey, you have an opportunity to get level-headed or proceed with a dispute resolution as it relates to this case. Would you agree? Certainly under no means would we move forward with both parties until we have that voluntariness agreement to participate from both parties. And I think that is an important part of what we're exploring, right? How do we meaningfully engage with parties who are adversarial? What does it look like for the party who hasn't approached the peacemaker, if you will? And what's the most meaningful way, right? Some of that experience comes anecdotally from my time in mediation and how I engage. Some of that I like to think of, what can we do to augment or have the awareness and I want to say the conversation around mediation be really palpable, or it's not the right word, but it's the one that's coming to me, like something that you can absorb and appreciate if you're on the other end.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my second question is more of a meta question,
Yeah.
which is when you first started talking about that your vision is that, people resolve, that mediation is the go-to place for people to resolve their conflicts, right? I thought this woman is on the same page as me because I'm an elder care mediator. My mission in life is to help families resolve their conflicts on the journey of aging so they never see an attorney or a court. But then now it sounds like you are only dealing with conflicts that have already escalated to the legal level in some fashion. Why is that?
I think it's great that you bring that up, and by no means am I by no means is this limited to court cases. In fact, this platform should be, I hope to reflect, is pre-filing, right? So people who come with a dispute and we're not engaged with the legal process. Now, that being said, I want it to be accessible for both. So I'd love to ask you where or why or what makes you think, as I demonstrate this, and again, you can throw it back at me. I'm good with criticism or thoughts. Like, where did you think, oh, this is only for people who are officially engaged in a legal dispute?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Okay.
saying people who are thinking of their conflict in a legal context. Your whole language is about cases and like a lot of things in the language is about framing a conflict from a legal point of view. Whereas I believe that most conflicts are not legal in nature, and if they fester and don't get dealt with, people don't know anywhere else to go rather than get legal help.
Okay, I see. So in your view of this, a lot of the language really speaks to the legal process.
Yes, that whole
Okay.
idea of ADR, alternative dispute resolution, alternative to the legal
Yeah.
system, rather than we are the first place to go to.
No, I love and appreciate this consideration. Again, maybe this is born from my blinders of being a lawyer, but this is exactly what I think is important to me. Removing the legal language and then what are those words, right? I always think of case, and that's not the right word. I always think of, unfortunately, plaintiff and defendant. So for me to like move to party, but I think that your points are spot on and exactly what I want to aim to eliminate. And that is thinking of this in a legal framework. So I appreciate that for sure. And if you have any recommendations or further considerations, feel free to share them. This is
Thank
great
you.
feedback. Yeah.
Ken.
Ken. Yeah.
Yes, just a couple questions. As
Please.
a mediator approaching your platform and interested in engaging in it and basically hiring you, do you handle all of the billing for not just for the entire process for the case or the mediation?
Yeah, so the thought is that whether you mediate are determining the fee or we have predetermined a fee, because again, I'm sure we all know this. One of the biggest cruxes of mediation is who pays for the service, and there are lots of volunteer mediators. And so one of the ideas is, I think for certain cases, we would say, hey, we're giving you the case essentially by paying for the use of the platform and you charge your fees. But we would facilitate that payment for you. The thought is everything is in here. So in my traditional mediation practice, I hover between a Gmail, a Stripe, a payment facilitation, a few others that I use, a PDF. So whether or not you're being paid directly or it's your mediation fees, the payment would go through the system to automate and to keep consistent. But really our goal is to say, especially with these bigger organizations and where we hope we can go and speak to mediation. And I keep bringing up Airbnb just because we're having some interesting conversations with them, and I do a lot of real estate or real property mediations. Is them saying, well, of course the user doesn't want to like step in and potentially pay for mediation. So would Airbnb be willing to say, hey, have your parties who are in disagreement at this level engage with mediation? You bear the cost of that in hopes that we get to a resolution that's meaningful and the people renting the house are happier, and they want to return to your platform. And then we have meaningful conversation between also the people who are making Airbnb money, and that's the people putting their houses on their market. But you can think of this in a variety of other settings. So in those cases, you would be logging on and saying, I want to receive my caseload from the Levelheaded platform. I'm going to do as many cases as I want or I can, and we're going to pay you to administer those cases. And we're going to accept payment from whoever we determine should be the payees. And of course, neutrality is of utmost importance for us. So I think a big consideration in this is if we have mediators and they're saying, hey, we're mediating for Airbnb and Airbnb is paying for it, then we have to figure out how we maintain our neutrality and maintain the fact that, you're not working for Airbnb. So really having this panel of mediators who are not being paid for Airbnb or not in any way being broken of their neutrality by that because we're paying them to be neutrals, is what we're hoping to achieve with that motion. And then obviously passing the cost to the mediator who performs the service.
Do you have a restriction on the amount of time for these mediations? Because some of us go all day and into the night.
I know, right? No, I mean, I think this is, again, I think an important consideration for some of like the subject matter. And I think it would be something that, I'd love to figure out as it relates to subject matter. So some of the thought is that if we can streamline a lot of the administrative needs or augment the human experience with the use of technology and harmonize it, that you could have some purview around time restrictions for the mediation. That being said, I think it's a great consideration, but the hope is that a mediator, if they wanted, could do more than one mediation a day. Now, I'm not saying you would do a mediation at 9, 10, 11, 12, right? We're not going to restrict you,
No,
and
okay.
I don't believe in that. But I think, yeah, it might be like a morning session and an afternoon session. And maybe because now you have this panel of mediators, if you're really going over, we can say, hey, I've got a last minute snafu. I'm still in a mediation. Pass this one off to Colin. He can jump in
Okay.
and save my day.
Okay, thank
But it's
you.
a great point. Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Anyone else before I keep charging along here? Okay. I'm sorry, I'm seeing these I'm seeing these notes. So and I hope I'm saying your name right. Moranique, beautiful name. No, so you said, do the parties need to interface with the platform? It's a great question. I have found through some research of my current beta version that, again, because the parties are in dispute, they really like it when things come to them in the traditional way, whether it's straight into their email inbox or even text. My current beta version, the parties do have access to their ticket, if you will, if we're not calling it a case, but they never use it. They do not want to go there. They don't want to create a new password, especially as it relates to a problem. Certainly, I love the thought of having people engage with this beautiful interface. We'll see how it goes. This is sort of a part of the research that we're trying to figure out how people want to engage, what's most meaningful. Okay, I appreciate this consideration, Tina, for sure. Yeah, so visual impairment, I think that that's a great point. I also think of, I speak French, but certainly having some translation opportunities, I think it's going to be imperative. How can we get that, and how can we ensure that that's really right? So I love that for non-English speakers. Okay, I'm going to turn back over to my presentation. I think I've answered all the chat questions. Yes, go ahead,
I
Katharina.
actually have another question. Am I
Great.
still open? Yeah. I'm just noticing now that on the screen, it looks like the mediator is bigger than the parties. Why is that?
Oh, you should be just someone to walk through. This was just us snagging like a visual to show a video demonstration. There is no reason as to her size, and it's a great consideration, right? They should not be center screen. This is not a real tool yet. So
Oh,
you
okay.
would be using Zoom. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's a good point. No, that this was just yeah, again, a visual for showing, hey, now you're in a video on the platform, if you will. Okay, I'm going to move us along because there's two really significant considerations that I want to ask people's feedback on. The first being, so we're in the mediation. Great. We have had the opportunity to speak extensively, and now we're at the point where the parties have agreed, and we're going to move towards drafting a resolution. In my practice, I always tell people this, especially when we get there, we're halfway done because, right, drafting the terms of the resolution is a sticky point. Everybody's tired. They're like, yay, we've gotten there. But it's like, no, now I have to go and articulate everything that you've told me in the best way. Sometimes I get it wrong. Oh gosh. And it's also just a point where people, can become a little more adversarial, or that's not what I said, right? So the thought is how could we use technology again to augment that? And instead of me going and saying, all right, I've got to pause, everybody stay here, but I'm going to go draft up a settlement agreement based on your terms for the next, anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on the complexity. What if the technology could hear what the parties had said? Another issue of mine is I'm constantly mistranscribing things, right? People's names, blah, 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 and say, great, we have had this wonderful conversation. We know what some of the settlement terms are. Now I can hit this little page here and it is going to synthesize our conversation. It's going to synthesize what the case information has been in receipt. So we're going to have the parties' names, and it is going to draft a resolution or a stipulation for us to review. There are a few things that I love about this. One, I get it, it's AI and that can be hard, but it's neutral, right? And we can easily say, hey, this isn't going to be right, but this is our first draft. It takes away a lot of the heavy lifting and we can refine it. This is a big ask, right? Like having technology ask us to distill something meaningfully that talks specifically about the terms and everything it's heard, right? It really has to pull out really the neutrality, but also the terms that we want to agree to. So this is something that's definitely a future state, but I'm really interested in getting feedback on. So I'd love to hear what people think about this tool and saying, hey, you've just gone through this mediation. How would you think about using a button that said, here's a draft settlement, start to work with this and review this with the parties and fill in the dots? Thoughts, considerations? I see a few shaking heads, but I can't see everyone, unfortunately. Okay, I'm going to keep going on then just because we're running out of time. I'm having too much fun.
Mo,
Yes.
Dan here. Just quickly, what are the confidentiality issues as you see it and any concerns that you're wrestling with?
Yeah, so confidentiality is a huge consideration. Obviously, the technology that would be used in receiving and hearing all this information, right? I assume we all use Zoom or whatever. I don't go into Chat GPT and then say, hey, these are the terms. So it would have to be a closed system that completely honored that. And that's why this is a heavy lift, because we can't put parties' confidential conversations or information into anything that it doesn't have the utmost in considerations for that. So again, this technology is not built yet. I think that we're going to have to hire very special and unique tech developers to honor those considerations and to really ensure that how they're receiving and distilling the information is done so in a way that respects confidentiality. And how does that work? Is it that the audio that's coming in redacts confidential information and really neutralizes it? Or is it that the whole process is done sort of in a vacuum and at the end, everything is thrown out? Essentially, what we do as humans. So again, I'm a mediator, I'm a lawyer too. I have the utmost considerations for confidentiality. In fact, I'll be the first to admit when COVID happened and everybody said, oh, we're going to mediate via Zoom, I was like, I will not do that. That will never happen. That means videos, recordings, and too much. And here I am. So I'll never say never, but that is of utmost importance. I think of too, so this is just another, I want to say, anecdotal point in my mind. And I wasn't a part of this, but it's just something that I've heard. Apparently, when email first started, and lawyers were given the opportunity to use email, the legal profession said, oh no, that's, abhorrent, and we couldn't have all those communications flying around, and it breaks confidentiality, and there are way too many issues. Obviously, we all know email became ubiquitous, and now email is used prolifically throughout the mediation process. So I will be the first to admit that I'm not necessarily a huge technological person, but I think that technology is going to advance. And if we don't embrace it and figure out ways to augment our profession and move into the future alongside it or in harmony with it, we're going to miss a valuable opportunity to progress our profession and how it's used in the future. And that's really important to me. I want my children to know about mediation and to know how to use it. And if I sit around and look at how they're using it now and how I traditionally use mediation, there's not a lot of crossover. So we've got to find that ground of where we can, again, put humans and technology in harmony to progress this profession and how we use it. And that may be huge considerations for how do we make these audio things confidential but more meaningful. This is the next a big consideration that I think is wonderful, but I really want to hear everybody's feedback on. So you'll see over here, we have the draft stipulation that you would be able to edit. So it gives you a draft and then you work with the parties on finalizing the terms. Maybe you say, oh, I want a no contact clause or an anti-disparagement, or we're in Colorado, whatever it may be. And again, I'm sorry, Katharina, those are a bit over legalese terms, so I hear you. One of the other points of stickiness that I get to, particularly in small claims court, is when we're talking about facilitating payment of settlement, right? So parties agree, Morgan's going to pay Colin $1,000, but I don't have $1,000 right now, and I want to make a payment of $100 over 10 months. All of a sudden, communication can break down, parties maybe are hostile, I don't want to send them a check. There's all sorts of reasons that just end up at the end of these resolutions. And I think that there are huge considerations as it relates to access to justice in this place. And I would love to be able to consider that at a higher level, but also say, hey, no problem. Levelheaded has the opportunity to help you finance or to help facilitate direct payment. So not only can we close out a resolution right now, but we can help the parties get through this extra sticky point. I spend a lot of time going between the parties, whether we're in caucus or together at the very end, saying, all right, well, how are you going to Venmo them? What's your Venmo name? What check? Where is this coming from? By what date do you have to receive it? If you could say that the platform is going to facilitate that process, I think that would be really meaningful. The access to justice play is being able to offer that for unbacked parties. So those are people without financial considerations or financial ability to say that they have access to some of these payment options. So you've reached an agreement. Here are the terms. Maybe you have a payment schedule. Instead of going into Venmo or your bank account, whatever it may be, you can facilitate payment directly, do a payment plan via the platform. I also love this just because I think we could automate or prompt users, if you will, to say, hey, don't forget your payment. We're going to send you a reminder. You agreed to pay Colin $100 every month by the 10th of the month. Wonderful. We're going to be aiding with ensuring that payment goes through and facilitating what I hope is the most meaningful, stress-free resolution. I'm going to stop there and ask for, again, feedback, points of consideration. I know this is a big one, so I'd love to hear what you all think. No one?
Morgan,
Yes, Stan,
Mo,
please.
yes, thank you so much. I'm Stan Heston, and I live in Dallas, Texas.
Nice to meet you.
The screen before about the original draft, that is just an option for us. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. If you wanted to draft your own, and again, by all means, this is just an opportunity to help to have technology make the mediator's process perhaps quicker, perhaps more efficient, but it would always, all of this is really an option.
There's so much conversation in Dallas, and I'm involved with the university where I have my master's in dispute resolution. And when I listen to you kind of pass over that AI was neutral, when we realized it's not, it is biased.
Yeah.
And I rarely will use AI for anything. When Colin was here in Dallas a few weeks ago, and even discussed that. We realize that AI is here to stay. It's there's nothing we can do about it, and it is the future. But as Daniel Rainey said about Justice Alito when he said the internet was agnostic, he said, BS, it's not. So I'm still so hesitant about getting AI to do anything for me. I write all of my settlement agreements, and I don't know how it is in Colorado in the lower courts. In Texas, we have what's called Justice of the Peace Court, where the remedies are $20,000 or less, and they have hundreds of cases a week. And I may mediate 5 in one day. They get 45 minutes to mediate the case and 15 minutes for me to write the settlement agreement. And you're not paid much, but it's for people to get experience. So I don't know how it is in Colorado. I was just curious, but we recognize down here that it is not an agnostic system.
Yeah, no, I think well, Stan, first of all, thank you. And I love what you're doing. There are very similar programs in Colorado. In fact, there's one in one of our counties where we do the same sort of thing. I think I did 8 mediations one day, and that was like a half a day. And I also have, and again, I am not even as versed or as knowledgeable on AI as Colin. This is new to me. And I have also read extensively information around how AI is not neutral and doesn't have inherent bias because of the information that we're feeding it, right? And how where is all the information that it's coming from, and what biases does that already have inherently? And I think that we're just in the beginning stages of understanding that. And I think all of this is an extremely important consideration, not only as a mediation practitioner, really, but I think as a human, because the reason that I'm here is because I am human, and I really love what this opportunity provides people. And again, like, where is the magic in that? What is of the utmost importance when we're talking about what a plus mediation looks like, and how can we offer that to everyone in a meaningful way? And there are so many considerations that need to go into that, right? Just beyond what I can possibly even think of. So I think it's an important point. And again, this is a prototype. So a lot of this is not built. These are considerations that we're considering building. So this is why I humbly ask you all to say, what do you think? What are some of the things that make you pause or you have trouble with? And I agree, Stan. I think ensuring and understanding how we could make sure that it was neutral, confidential, are going to be of paramount significance. I also think, perhaps when we have and again, this is AI, but the tool listening to the parties themselves in the mediation, what does that mean? But I also think of considerations of parties who, what if you have a mediation, and I have this often where one party really isn't saying a lot, and another party is, and if you have that dynamic and then you're asking it to create a settlement, well, the settlement might really be based off of the person who's speaking a lot, and pulling out considerations for that. How do we look at that? How do we observe from a technological perspective that is given direction by humans to effectuate some of those considerations? And again, what I think is most important about mediation, and that is that we are humans.
Absolutely. So Mo, I'm cognizant of the fact we're getting to the bottom of the hour
Right.
here.
Yep.
I don't know if you have any final comments or things that you want to show, but this has been amazing. Everybody's texting me saying, wow, this is really incredible what you put together.
Oh, cool.
So do you have any last comments you'd like to make?
No, I don't. There's a few things that we didn't get over, but mostly I'm just really excited to be here in front of you all. And again, my Zoom room and my LinkedIn are open. I hope that you reach out. I hope to see more of you over Zoom and perhaps even in person. And I really appreciate some of the thoughts and the things that you all have shared with me today, and look forward to a future where mediation is more prolific and people around the world and from anywhere have access to it. So thank you all for listening to me for a good hour today. I really
No,
appreciate it.
absolutely. And I just want to say too, Mo, you're doing an incredible job. One of the things I love about what you put together, not only is it so well thought out and beautifully designed, and it's also really modernizing mediation for the next generation. I love the tone, I love the messaging, I love the brand personality, I love the graphics, and that's really exciting because I think you are a leader of the next wave of where this is all headed, and so I just want to applaud you and applaud the team, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I think it's very inspiring. And thank you for joining ICODR. And we're very excited to bring you into this community as you make more progress. So,
Oh, thank you so much, Colin. Wouldn't be here without you. Wonderful to meet you all. Thanks so much for the great conversation.
great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody. Keep in touch and stay tuned for more ICODR emails coming soon about our event happening next month. All right. Take care, everyone. See you soon.
Thanks.